You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit about our current sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. As you well know, if you've been following This is Oklahoma, they've been a huge part of this podcast. So this podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling an Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Also, for the podcast, a new sponsor, RCB Bank. Since 1936, RCB Bank has offered progressive products and a friendly service. Come in today to find out more about their loan promotion on new, used, refinanced cars, boats, campers, and ATVs. Visit RCB Bank to learn more. RCB Bank, that's my bank. With approved credit, restrictions apply. Now, let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the Bedford studio today with a friend. It's nice to interview friends. Long time no see. Andrea Fillmore's on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a long time.
Yeah.
I consider you a friend because we've met before and chatted before and been at the same conferences and stuff. I say conferences, probably events. And I love what you do. And I remember before you started your company, right? You were working and then were like, I'm going to go on my own. And that whole process, which we'll get into today, but it's working because you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Which is
so
awesome.
far, so good.
So far, so good. Before that, though, tell us a little bit about you. What's your kind of Oklahoma story? Were you born here?
No, I was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a couple years in and around New Mexico, Santa Fe, Albuquerque area.
Yeah.
And spent most of my life, though, in Broken Arrow.
Okay.
So grew up there. I moved to Georgia and was there for about 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And moved back to Oklahoma in 2014. And I've been in Oklahoma City since, I think, late 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, though. It's good to bounce around and have those kind of different experiences, right? And growing up in different places. I'm sure you have a ton of friends from all over the place.
All over.
Yeah. The business thing, creative writing stuff, and not creative writing, but writing, communication.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that passion start from a young age? Because I am terrible at writing. And
that's why I'm here.
My aunt is a former English teacher, and she got me through like my English exams back home. And I always struggled. I was slow. I was very slow to read back home. I struggled to write. I just wasn't naturally gifted at it. And then because of that, I didn't care, right? Like typical like young kid, like I'm terrible at this. I'm not going to put any effort into it. And I had like tutors when I was younger, and then my aunt helped me out a lot as well, get me through kind of like my exams. But for you, like where does that start from like a young age to want to communicate through the written word and stuff like that?
Well, I think I have to give a lot of credit to my mom. We were in the library every summer.
Yeah.
So my whole family, we love to read. We were constant avid readers. And so I think it started with that. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if this is true for everyone, but it feels like in school you take one of two paths. You're good at science and math, or you're good at reading and writing.
Right.
And for me, math was the thing that I just despised more than anything. Science was okay, but because it involved math, it was never strong. So
the other route is to be an athlete, and I went the sport route.
Yeah.
I had good teachers who got me through the others. But
yeah. So I think it started, it was just my natural gifting and what I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And later on, I never really worked with words. I did a lot of retail, food service, a lot of those jobs. Then I got into the nonprofit world when I moved to Oklahoma City, got a job, and learned a lot about fundraising and fundraising communication. And that is a whole nother world. Mm-hmm. And it's basically everything you're taught in college to do with writing is wrong when it comes to business communication.
Asking for money.
Yeah, and asking for money. And, they teach you in school it's like jazz, right? You learn all the rules so you can break all the rules.
Yeah.
So learning the right way to do things in college, I always loved writing papers. I would just knock them out, never was challenging to me. But got into fundraising communication, and I learned a lot about just how to make topics interesting. Mm-hmm. And what I do now is I like to say I craft compassionate communication, which is made for the reader. It's not, I think a lot of businesses and nonprofits say, we've been around since 1975 and we do this and our staff and it's all about me and we and us and our, but if someone's coming to you, it's because they need help. And so I learned a lot of skills in the nonprofit world, in the marketing, just about how to make communication that people want to connect with. And through that, that's how you raise money. That's how you sell your products and services. So I learned in the nonprofit, I was learning all these things and I thought, this applies for business too. Why aren't businesses doing this? So what I do is less marketing. I think marketing is such a huge blanket term, but I focus specifically on just the words, conveying what makes you great through the written word. And every type of marketing starts with words, right? You can have a picture, but that doesn't go as far as, telling a story, communicating the problem that you solve through business.
Yeah, and especially if you're scrolling social media or if you're out there and you see an ad or whatever, the picture usually gets your attention, doesn't it? And then it's the writing that keeps you there. And then, you've got to keep going, right? Like you got to keep writing, keep telling the story. I mean, you don't have very long to capture that person.
Right.
Scrolling, and it's, I remember when I was following someone and someone was complaining because this person wrote like novels in their Instagram posts. And everybody like read it because it was entertaining, and most people, like if you see it, people now when they post on Facebook, they're like, okay, long post, like they preface it, right? They're like here it's coming. It's like, well, I know not most people don't care, do they? But it's kind of funny they preface it. But you're right, like it's a cool business to have, I'm sure, because it's something that you've kind of grown a passion for. I'm sure when you're growing up you thought, okay, I'm good at English, but reading and writing, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. Like you probably didn't think you could have a business like this.
I didn't think I was going to be an entrepreneur until maybe the day I filed my LLC. Like it didn't feel like something that fit my personality, but it really does. And I love it. I love what I do. It's so fun.
Great business name too.
Thank you. Strategic Hype.
Big fan. And just the color scheme that goes with like everything and bright colors, and it's...
Thank you.
I saw that, I was like, I wish I had a business that was named that, because it's just it's not what when you listen to Strategic Hype, you don't think write copyright and writing, and you think something different, right? But then you click on the website and like, okay, now this makes sense.
It so encapsulates like what I do. And
that's so good.
I have to say, my friend Naoma came up with the name. It wasn't me.
And the logo's sick too.
Yeah, she did the branding, the website, and everything.
Yeah.
So
tell me about kind of that moment that you didn't realize you were going to be an entrepreneur until you did your LLC, and how specifically kind of like the community around here with the Treasury and everybody else, like that plays a huge role too. Oh yeah, it was a huge foundational piece for me. I was a member of the Treasury for a while, and that's, I don't know if the listeners know, that's a co-working space on Film Row for women. And so I had kind of toyed with the idea, and then one of my friends and one of the members there, Mary Seams, was like, just do it. Just get your credit card. Just start your business. She's like, communication is your superpower. Yeah. And I was like, oh, when she said it in that way, it just, a lot of things fell into place for me. I was like, oh, so she walked me through and like sat down with me, and we filed the LLC, and, and I was like, oh no, like I've got money in this now. Like I've gotta like toe the line. So it was like a process really over 6 months, I think. And I started my business in 2020, which kind of was nice because I was working full time from home, and then what else are you gonna do when you can't leave your house? Yeah. So for about 6 months, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was in a mastermind through the Treasury, and one of the ladies asked, well, why can't I hire you? Why are you doing such a niche thing? And I was like, just kidding, Stacey, you can, please hire me. And so it was a lot of feedback, and I'm really, really grateful for the Treasury and, friends like, Lauren Warkentine and Bailey Gordon and Mary Seams. Like that community really rallied around me, and they would listen to me, complain about my job, and then at the same time, you can do it. You'll know when it's time. And I think the overlap process is so hard because you want to take the leap, but you're not sure. And you're tired all the time because you work 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9. And it took me a while to kind of figure out
what is this business like besides communication? Like, and it's an ongoing process. And any entrepreneur will tell you the business you start is not the business you have it 12 months later.
I didn't think I'd have a podcast.
Yeah. So it was definitely a product of that community and friends and people just being like, just do it, man, just do it. And people to bounce ideas off of. And so many of my friends are entrepreneurs, and they're like a different breed. Like if you find one, you'll find 10 of them.
Like it rewires your thinking and forces you to think a different way when you've grown up working 9 to 5 and you've had that security of a job, and you're probably going to get the weekends off and maybe a few holidays here and there, and you're like, yeah, this is my life. And then, like I said, you meet a group at the Treasury who are all women entrepreneurs and all in so many different diverse businesses. Lauren does clothing, and Shannon's obviously a part of it too with leadership, and Mary's doing systems for real estate, and like you got all this stuff going on. Like, but then, like you said, you meet one entrepreneur and they all think like, well, why not? Like a recent guest was Jeremy Kubicek, and he said the same thing. He's just like, why can't we do this? I think he spoke. I came to an event once, right? And he spoke there,
Jeremy, I've known Jeremy for a couple of years. He's dangerous, man. If you get around he'll be like, I quit tomorrow.
Yes.
It's like a drug, really.
No, you're right. It is. Yeah. And you probably couldn't have asked for a better time for everyone to be working from home. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can get all of my work done that I need to for my real job.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, some days you aren't just working from 5 to 9 or 5 to 10 or in the early hours of the morning. You are like working in the middle of the day on building your own business because no one's watching you.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of lunch breaks where I'm doing a little, it was a perfect overlap for me, like 2020. And I think I got to the point where I was just stressed because there is a lot of pressure when all you do is work and the quarantine and all of that on top of it. But I finally came to the point where I was like, I trust my gut, I trust myself, so I'll know when it's time to go, when it's time to leave and make that transition. And so I just got to the point in the fall of 2020 where I was like, okay, is it today? Nope. Okay, then I'm just going to go to work, and you just know it's a lot. I don't even think it's risk. I think it's just strategy and trusting your gut. I didn't really feel risky because I had clients and things like that, but there's a lot of trusting your intuition involved for sure. Yeah.
With the client side then, how, like, people listening, they're like, how do you make money? Is it like a project-based thing? Is it kind of like what is like the packages, I guess, and the services that you offer that people pay you for?
That's a good question. So I can pretty much write anything. So in the nonprofit world, it was
including college papers.
I could. I'm not going to say that I will.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the nonprofit world, I learned a lot about writing a customer journey and how you take someone from making an initial donation and how you nurture that relationship through writing, whether that's email or physical mail.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of website copy is one of the hottest selling things I do. I'm really getting a lot of social media copy requests. That's a growing part of my business.
Like for just general everyday posts, and this is kind of,
businesses, entrepreneurs. I do customer newsletters. What I really want to do, I haven't had the opportunity yet, is help businesses create a customer journey and teach them the skills that the nonprofit community has. Say, okay, this is when a customer pays you for a product or service, this is how you continue to nurture that and over time retain them as a customer, because everybody knows it's cheaper to keep a customer than get a new one.
Right.
But I also have this product that I developed. This is what I came up with last year during quarantine, and it is probably half my business right now, and it's called a hype kit. And the way that works is it's like a little package. Like if you wanted a hype kit for This Is Oklahoma, I would send you your Google Drive folder. You would answer 5 questions. It'd take you about an hour. And from there, I read through what you're saying, and then I notice what you're not saying.
Yeah.
And I help craft mission statements for businesses, for personal brands. And then from the mission statement, we'll go into, I'll write what is a hype sheet. And it's basically like a 1 to 2 page write-up about why people should do business with you, what you do, how you do it. Every business is a little bit different. and then I'll give you a paper that says this is how you use it. So this is what I'd use, for your LinkedIn bio. This is your LinkedIn about. This is your Instagram. This is what I would use for, you'll usually get several little blurbs that you can use for social media. You can put them in your emails. You can put them in your newsletters. So it's like a document that keeps working for you, and marketing is definitely a practice and repetition. I think a lot of businesses shy away from. Yeah. The two things I hear the most are, I hate writing, I'm not good at it, or I feel like I say the same thing. And the art of fundraising that I've learned was you have to say the same thing 30 different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
And so as you repeat it, about the time that you're getting tired of saying it, is people are like, hey, I think that guy has a podcast, I think Mike said one time, and you're like, literally every time I've seen you.
Yeah, right. Well, people don't, like, you're right, like, you have to kind of like beat it into people, right?
Yeah.
Because they think, oh yeah, maybe. I mean, even today, like, when people say, how's the podcast doing? And I'm like, yeah, it's doing okay. They're like, but you have so many followers. I'm like, yeah, not all of them listen to the podcast. Yeah. I can guarantee you that. They're like, well, how is that? I'm like, well, people have different things. People don't listen to podcasts. Some people just have other podcasts. There's millions out there.
Yeah.
It's so funny that when you're right. People need to learn that even though you've told someone once, the amount of people that actually saw that post, or like outside of like your parents and your family that follows everything that you do,
right?
You're going to probably annoy them by posting the same thing over and over again, but the majority of people aren't going to see all of it. So
right.
It's good to keep doing, keep reposting, or like I said, saying the same thing 30 different ways.
For sure.
Like, oh, now I get it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You have a service that I would like, or you have a charity that I'd like to donate to, or it goes to any kind of business, and it's not just the nonprofit world. But the lessons that you have learned for the nonprofit world are huge, because, a buddy of mine works for the Children's Hospital Foundation, and I was asking him some tips on like how to ask for things, because I'm not used to it, right? Asking for donations, and I'm helping, for events and stuff like that. And I've asked, the same people, like probably twice a year for the last, probably 4 times over the last 2 years. And I'm uncomfortable to ask again, even though I know that they're probably going to give me 4 gift cards to their restaurant. It's just that part of me that's like.
That's another podcast, Mike. Fundraising.
Yes,
how to
fundraising is
how
tough.
To ask for support.
But it's good that you've taken that lesson and taken it to your part of the business, not only to grow your own business, but to help clients grow theirs as well, which is kind of really neat, and kind of, the great thing about listening to people's stories is picking out what they've picked out of their journey on the way, and now how they're using those things. Yeah. And that's clearly something that you use every day. Yeah. Which is awesome.
Thanks. I love it.
Yeah. And the freedom is,
oh my gosh.
At first you were probably like, what do I do every day? But now it's like,
it took me till about June before I was like, I don't have to get up at 5:30. Like now I sleep till 6:30 every morning. It's been a learning journey, just trusting yourself, trusting the process, adjusting your rhythms and your routines, which is huge for me, but like learning that, you have a lot more freedom. And I think that's the second most addictive drug after entrepreneurship is the freedom.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people work 24/7, 365 on their business, and I've not had to have that experience. So I feel very lucky that, I still have manageable hours and things are just going well.
Yeah, and you build around the time. You think, okay, I want to go away for 2 weeks. I'm going to front load everything for the few weeks before it, and to get my work done, and that's why I have to do minimal. You're not like sat on the beach like sweating thinking I have to get this post out now or this work out, which some people might do that, but that's again product of being your own boss. Tell me about, like, I'm looking at the website, LinkedIn coaching sessions. People don't really value LinkedIn that much, is it? It's such an underrated platform.
It is so underrated.
Right?
Yeah.
Still to this day, like people tell you should be on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is magic. And if you're not on LinkedIn and you're in business or own a business, you're missing out. I've made money just from showing up. People find you. And so LinkedIn coaching sessions are something I developed. When I first got hired into the nonprofit world, I got on LinkedIn and I just taught myself everything I know now. But it's been so valuable to me to make connections, and there's a lot of secrets and tips and tricks I've learned from other people and just from my own experience to make connections, broaden your community, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, to widen your exposure.
Right.
Or if you're, newer in your career, really establishing who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about. And it's so important. And I think a lot of people just, it can feel overwhelming because it's not as intuitive as Facebook and Instagram, but it can be so great for your business, for your career. Yeah.
And the reach is much better. Like, talk about algorithms and all the rest of it. Like, it's much easier to get seen on LinkedIn as it is when you post an Instagram or a Facebook post, right? Especially for your business. Yeah. Hot tip, LinkedIn is prioritizing longer posts. So some of those long form posts, now, those are good.
Yeah, I need to do that.
I get back to writing blogs and stuff again because they did pretty well when I did them. But I just kind of
I say the same thing. I'm writing everybody else's stuff,
Right.
But I need to do mine. I
need to do your own.
Overlook my own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Hype Kit. You mentioned LinkedIn coaching. What about like kind of the strategy part of things? Because that's something that like is tailor-made to everything you do is tailor-made to the business, but with specific a strategy, like that's something that's a real service, isn't it? That's something that like people, not to say that what you don't do is a service, your other stuff, but when someone comes to you and they're like, the words are great, but how do I implement all of this?
Yeah, I think, there's strategy. If you're familiar with the Strengths Finder, strategic is my top strength on that. And it's built into how I'm wired. So when I'm writing copy, the strategy is built in. It's built into, okay, I did some web copy for somebody today, actually, and I was like, you don't have any calls to action on your website. How are people going to contact you?
Right.
Like, this is why I added
there should be at least
things.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the strategy is innate to me, and I think that's so great that that's why I love the name so much, Strategic Hype. Like, we're going to hype you up in a strategic way to get you noticed and be remembered. So the strategy really comes in through the work and just how I'm able to read, like in the Hype Kit, what you're saying and then what you're not saying.
Yeah.
And pull apart the stuff that is superfluous. It doesn't matter. Get rid of that and focus on the main thing. I think business owners especially struggle with, you can't see the forest for the trees. When you're running a business, it's hard to focus on the details. And so that's where I see most of that strategy coming in and helping companies. But then also like just planning things that I've helped businesses do is just planning, like not even writing for them, but saying, okay, you want to do a 12-month newsletter. We're going to break it into quarters. Every quarter you're going to talk about these 3 things, and it's already on your blog.
Yeah.
So like just being able to zoom out, I think, and see the whole picture and then kind of come in close and say, these are the details and how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
That's something that's very natural to me. And so I don't have any clients right now that just hire me to strategize their communications, but it's built into what I do, and it is part of just the overall package deal, I guess.
It's really, you're right. It's cool to like, when someone, especially if an entrepreneur, they do everything in their business, right? They're their accountant, marketing, everything. And then you say, well, you have to post all this stuff, and they're not used to being tech savvy or writing savvy. But when you come to them with a legit plan for a year, and it says it's like the whole goal, isn't it? The elephant, what is it? To eat an elephant, you take it one bite at a time. Yeah. Breaking it down to daily actions or weekly actions, and just saying this is all you have to do this week, and then we'll do the next week, and then like it takes so much stress and weight off their shoulders, doesn't it? Because they're thinking about all this other stuff that they got to run their business and get clients. The last thing they're thinking about, usually marketing, is their last priority, isn't it?
Right. Or
Sadly.
They're just doing the minimum. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, but I hate doing it. Please don't make me do it.
Like I have a handle, I have a page, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which is drawing no engagement. Tell me about, I guess, speaking engagements and stuff like that. That's now, hopefully now people are going back and doing speaking engagements, not just over Zoom, because I did some of those over Zoom, and it's painful.
I am so done with Zoom.
When you crack a joke or you like want a response from the crowd and no one's on mute, it's like, I'm in my office laughing to myself.
Yeah, oh man, Zoom has become, we've passed the pain threshold, I think. Yeah.
Definitely served a purpose.
Yeah, it met a need, but dear God, I'm done.
But you do go out and speak and can go and talking and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, my background is in church leadership. That's my degree, which
Yeah.
is so not involved with what I'm doing.
Where did you study that?
Southwestern Assemblies of God University.
Okay.
I went online. But my mom went there, actually, so it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been speaking my whole life in church and in the community, and I love it. I love to present. For a long time, I thought I would be a teacher or a professor. There's still part of me that thinks maybe I'll do some adjunct.
Yeah.
But I'm having too much fun right now. I don't want to be responsible for other people.
Right, you don't want to commit to a semester of being there every Tuesday.
Yeah, no, I'm good now. Yeah, so I love public speaking, which is crazy because most people don't believe this, but I am an introvert technically.
Yeah.
But I know how to masquerade. It's the life of a party.
Well, when you're talking about something that you enjoy doing, right?
Yeah,
it's totally
yeah.
different when someone says, I want you to talk about this topic. And you're like,
gosh.
I have to research everything and remember everything.
Yeah.
But if someone says, go riff about what you do, hand me the microphone.
Good luck shutting me up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I need 30 minutes. No. You're going to be pulling me off the stage.
Oh, man. Yeah. I'm preparing right now a couple presentations for the nonprofit community just about crafting compassionate communication, how to do that. One thing I've been trying to get off the ground is visiting with local chambers of commerce to talk to business owners and say, this is what you need. This is how you do it. And then if you don't want to do it and you don't want that one other thing, I'm totally happy to help you. But just, so a lot of my public speaking is around communications, nonprofits, and then I have done in the past quite a bit in churches and stuff like that.
Plenty of those around for you to go and get business off, isn't there? It's that's the one. When I first came out here, and someone asked me, me and my dad were out here. We were just driving around before he left to go home, and he's like, "There's really churches everywhere."
So
I was like,
many.
yeah. And then after he left, someone asked me the same thing, and I was like, "There's as many churches here as there are pubs back home." And that's kind of like how I sold it. Not sold it, but that's how I explained it to my friends back home. It's like, when you go to a city or a village or a town or whatever, that there's at least 10 pubs in a square mile or whatever it is. That's what
I
churches
think now
are like
there's
here.
maybe more dispensaries than churches, which is saying something.
Yeah. The politics behind that, they missed the boat on that one, didn't they, somehow? If you drive up and down May Avenue, it is...
Yeah.
Central weed smoking avenue.
Yeah.
It's
wild.
It is wild. We'll see how that, I guess, grows and blooms or whatever it does. It's mad. And I've spoken to friends in other states and they don't have it yet. I'm like, you
just wait. Prepare yourself. Every empty strip mall is
if you own buildings that know you can't find a tenant for, you will have a tenant.
You'll have
there
one.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can charge them whatever you want to charge them. To that point, though, I did a podcast in Blackwell, Oklahoma, a couple of months ago, middle of nowhere. Sad that the town is kind of Walmart came in and the entire high street's just small towns dying out. Kind of Blackwell is the example. But the guy I was doing a podcast with was telling me about everybody buying up land in the area that's not from there. Some of them not even from this country, and just starting illegal weed farms.
Wow.
And the DEA and Drug Enforcement Agency and all the law, it's an issue.
Wow.
And we don't hear about it when you live in the city, but in the country, it is a real problem. And he said that him and his wife were driving back on a Saturday night and saw the lights on and a huge white tent. I thought, somebody's having a wedding. This is so cool. We should go drive by. And they drove by and were there's 12-foot high fence and dogs roaming around. And no, it's a weed farm. So funny. Anyway, away from the weed stuff.
Yeah.
What else is happening in business? I mean, it's a year, almost a year, or just past a year.
Yeah. So I started January 2020.
Yeah.
Didn't really do anything until June, and then in January 2021, I quit my job. Just under a year after I started the business, and so we're going strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am taking on new clients right now. I've had a full roster, which is crazy to start a business and not have to ask
within a year
for business for a year and a half. So I am taking on new clients. So if anybody needs copywriting, I'm here.
So explain when someone comes to you, like I said earlier, is it kind of hey, I just need this? Is there a minimum time they commit to you for? Is it a like, hey, we're going to hire you for 6 months or 3 months, and we'll like, how does that work out?
That's a good question. It depends on the client, what they need.
Okay.
Most of my work is project based. So if you want a website copy, that's one project.
Yeah.
And a lot of it depends on the client and when, how fast they give me what they need. I don't have any retainers right now. I have ongoing projects, but
Retainers are the goal.
Yeah, I actually had a retainer and it was fine, but I have not found like long-term retainers. Most of mine, like I said, are project-based for now.
Yeah,
I might explore that again soon, but
seems like a church would be a church and nonprofit would be great retainers, right? Because they've always got to keep putting out content.
And I had anticipated a lot of nonprofits because they were downsizing last year. I thought, okay, well, it feels like nonprofits, since they're laying off staff, they will outsource things because they're not paying overhead, they're not paying insurance, and it really didn't happen to the degree that I had thought. But yeah, nonprofit communications is my background, so that's churches and charities. But most of my work is for small businesses, entrepreneurs, things like that, locally. And like I said, the most popular thing I'm doing right now is web copy.
Yeah.
People just are like, I'm sick of my website.
I mean, I have one just because I have one. I probably, I don't know if anyone goes to it. I should probably check that out.
I know. Yeah.
But
I should update mine, but I'm too busy writing everyone else's.
Yeah. That's the problem of a small business, and you're taking care of everybody else. You have a podcast.
I do have a podcast.
Tell me about how much fun that is.
It's 11 out of 10, Mike.
Yeah.
It's.
I tell everybody they should start one
fun.
if they don't have one. And they're like, why? I'm like, you'll realize. It's so much fun.
It is so much fun. I think, so the podcast is also called Strategic Hype, and it's all about getting your yay back in life and business. So we cover a little bit of everything. And it's a blast. We're on summer break right now, so we're recording for the fall. But it's everything from like how to be a good friend, how to get your money in order, how to, live authentically, and really just helping people in any area of life that they might be struggling. So that's kind of a passion of mine, is just I'm really, really invested in helping other people succeed, because I think I would like to say it's because I'm a great human, but I'm a decent human, but like so many people have helped me get to where I am right now that I just try really hard to pay it forward. So my business, all of that, it wouldn't have happened. The podcast wouldn't be here if I wouldn't have moved to Oklahoma City and just had to start from nothing and build community.
Yeah.
And I think this is not related to the podcast, but like the only reason I've been able to be successful in business is not because I hustled extra hard, but there was like 3 years, so from 2018 to 2020, I just got involved in Creative Mornings. I got really involved and volunteered in the nonprofit community outside of the business I was in. I would go to every event that was free because I moved here, I didn't have any friends. Yeah. And I was like, okay, you're either going to be alone and bored, or you just got to get out there and do it. My introvert self didn't want to, but so
your introvert self wants to stay at home with the cat, right?
Yeah,
and just like,
and I was like, okay, it's like do or die. So I got really invested in Creative Mornings and some of those organizations, the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network, Association of Fundraising Professionals, and built my community. But because of that, because I served other people with no agenda, I was able to build a network that was authentic, and because I wasn't looking
You're not
for
asking for anything. Yeah.
Right. And so when it wasn't, there was no motive. I wasn't like, in 2 years, my master plan, I'm going to start a business. I had no idea.
And you're all going to be my clients. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's because of that network and because of volunteering I did, for TEDx and just anything I could find where I thought this is my skill set and I can add value. That's why I'm successful, and I think it's easy for people to be drawn to success. People, maybe this happened to you, but when I first got the website and the branding launched, people tell me all the time, your branding's so good, you're doing so good. And I'm like, well, I mean, I am, but like...
my bank account doesn't say that right now.
Yeah, and it's like the investment, you didn't see the 3 years that I sunk into relationships and serving and like no agenda. So... Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for me. And that's what I try to do through the podcast is just like give back to other people. And yeah, so the podcast itself is more, I was having really cool conversations with individuals, but I was having the same conversation over and over.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's a better way.
I need to figure this out.
Yeah. So if I'm going to lead or mentor or advise or help other people, how can I spread a wider net?
Right.
And so the podcast for me was the answer. And it has evolved quite a bit. It used to be Ann Graceville's, before my business. That's a play on my name.
Yeah.
Andrea Grace Fillmore. Yeah, it's pretty clever. My mom loved it. I think she's sad that she made me sad that it's RIP. But
Yeah.
so it started out more with like a leadership mentorship bent to it, and now it's a lot more about get your A back life and business, kind of a broader scope in a different direction. But I love it.
It's just
it's so fun.
Yeah, it is, and you're right. The value that people get from it, and if someone asks you a question and you're like, "Look, I don't have the time to give you the answer, but here's a link to an hour podcast that covers the entire topic, and you can take notes and listen to it on your free time."
Yeah,
that is what it's there for.
Who's your favorite guest besides me? Not that you're judging. Maybe I shouldn't ask that.
I get this question a lot. There's been a few. Most of the ones are people who people I've never met before. But also people like I've had 3 ones that have been super impactful. Hal Smith was one of them. Amazing businessman, still ticking, like just mind's always going. That was kind of the first one that was like, whoa, like that.
Wow.
Like I kind of asked a question, like, just tell me about what you do. You're going to start the podcast, and he told his entire story for like 30 minutes. I just sat there and listened. It was awesome. And someone from like an entrepreneur, it's like, that's one of the things that I love coming out here and being from here is being, here from the UK, is that UK isn't really entrepreneurial. And me and Jeremy spoke about that too, because he obviously has both kind of experience both sides of the pond. And just listening to like how Hal started out. And so that was really cool. The other one is with, Dr. George Henderson from OU, and that with me and Shannon Rich did that one together.
I love Shannon. Hi, Shannon. If you're listening,
hopefully she is. That was really cool because we put that into like 2 parts because it was so good, and it was like an hour and 40 minutes. And Dr. Henderson just poured his heart out, talked exactly about his upbringing in the first half, and then the second half was all about him coming to OU. When it was a sundown town, real estate agents wouldn't help him or his wife find a house. We did the podcast in the house that he bought when he came here, which is, for me, being in real estate was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And talked about the whole like going through that experience from kind of 60s to now, and his books, and the impact that he's had. And then we talked a lot about the current events that were going on. And this was before COVID last year, I believe. So it was kind of February time. Talked about everything that was going on in the world with racial issues and just all that stuff that was going on with the police, and that was kind of like, I cried during it.
Wow.
Like, I don't know, Shannon might have shed a tear. I definitely shed a tear because it was in the second half of the podcast. I was editing it and I was crying when I was editing it as well. And then the other one is a guy that I had, I'm going to remember his name. What's his name? It was one of the early ones. I was like late in the summer afternoon. I didn't really want to go. Like I was kind of tired all day. It was like a 7:30 podcast, driving down somewhere off I-40, and it was about signs. Like this guy like remakes and builds signs for like 7-Eleven and all this stuff, right? Like not really exciting stuff to talk about, like building a 7-Eleven sign after a wind's blowing it down. But I go in his office, and his office is like his desk is like made out of all wood, and it's got these cool little features to it. I'm like, that's kind of funny. And there's horse pictures everywhere in his office. And we get through talking about signs in like 5 minutes, right? And I'm like, we got at least 30 minutes. I gotta get something out of this podcast. It's like, so what's all the horse stuff for? Tell me about what you do. And he has this whole other side that like of his life, basically, that he helps kids with autism, anxiety, like just issues through horse therapy. Wow. And like just like he's like, I grew up on a ranch, like it's nothing to do with science, but like I love horses from day one, and he has a barn and horses and stuff, and basically he's a really good horse trainer as well, and insurance doesn't cover horse therapy. It covers like dog therapy. Dogs can go into hospitals, right? You can't just walk in with a horse. So basically people come out with their kids and kids who are like had bad experiences or like I said have autism, and he told this story about this little girl who she was under 24-hour care. The nurses were working around the clock with her, you know, to just help her live. You know, she's a little girl, to help her just go through life basically. And she sat there, she wouldn't like unclasp her hands. She was like super reserved and and he walks up with a horse and she's like does this, like opens up her arms to reach out, and the nurses are like in tears, crying their eyes out. Yeah, like, and this Carl Martin is his name. And it's OKC Sign Service, I think, is the business. But he doesn't have like anything to do with like none of his social media or anything is to do with the horse stuff. It's all kind of like word of mouth through the hospitals. And he just showed me videos after we were done of like that experience and like all the little kids, like, you know, these kids who like you might have grown up with a disability or just like shy kids that grew up, I mean, just bad experiences. And he walks over with a horse, like, and just like got some giggling around and running around, and the parents are like in tears because they've never seen their kid like that. So that one was like, because of that, I was going down there and I was a bit tired and like kind of wanted to reschedule, and just, you know, I was like, I ended up staying for over an hour and just chatting to him about it. And even after we stopped recording, like, I'm sure he's still doing it. And and I was just like, the last thing I expected was to do, you know, to hear about him changing like little kids' lives through horse therapy when we're going to like a warehouse off I-40 to talk about science. Crazy. So that was one of them. There's, like I said, there's a few. But the good thing about, and you get this too with the podcast, is like there's podcasts that you know. After you've done so many, it kind of becomes a routine, right? Like, you know, you can do it without notes. You can come in, you hang out, you kind of ask roughly the same amount of questions and just see where the conversation goes. But it's cool to you, but the ones that you don't realize is you only realize you made an impact when someone messages you and says, I love that podcast you did with this person. And you've never met that person before, and they're just a friend of the guest that you've had. And they tell you that they didn't know things about them, and they've been their friend for 20, 30 years. But they tell you on a podcast, but they don't tell their friends. So that's really cool, right? It's to kind of hear those stories about people that, like, you know, their upbringing or things, especially with entrepreneurs as well, is because they tell the stories that like no one knows. Yeah. Because it's just chatting to me and you. It's rather they don't think about the audience. Yeah. Hal Smith told a story about sneaking into to see Elvis when Elvis played in. Oh my God. Yeah. And he worked for Coca-Cola at the time, like servicing machines. And he came home in his uniform that just says Coca-Cola on it, and saw on the TV or the radio that Elvis was playing at the State Fair, grabs his jacket, goes up, and he said, I knocked on the back door and was like, yeah, I'm here to service the Coke machine. Oh my God. And just walked straight in, grabbed a chair, and just sat and watched Elvis. Oh my gosh. And I had people employees of his never heard that story. That's awesome. So yeah, little things like that have been really cool. I'm sure you come across it as well with stuff that, you know. And one of the great things too, and why I tell people that to start a podcast is, it forces you to be engaged and have a genuine conversation with someone, right? Yeah. And it's made my conversations with my family, my wife, my friends so much better because I am more engaged and I've technically practiced more having better conversations with guests and whoever. So I feel comfortable talking to anybody now. It's amazing. I'm You're a real Oklahoman now. Well, yeah, but also like you said earlier, you're a real introvert, and I kind of am as well. Like I always kind of grew up. People don't think that when they see me and I play golf and I have an accent, but deep down, I think we're all a little introverted, aren't we? So it's And I've done like 350 episodes. Everybody asks me, they're like, "Should I start a podcast?" I'm like, yes, but be consistent. Yeah. Oh man, that's the hardest thing. Consistency is the goal, isn't it? You know, I tell people, I'm like, the podcast doesn't make money. It hasn't brought me clients. It's a lot of work. Yeah. You know, and actually this year I hired somebody to do the production because I was so tired. But it is so rewarding. Nothing makes my heart excited than when somebody shares an episode on their Instagram. It's like, oh my gosh, this episode's blowing my mind. And I'm like, you're like, it's the greatest compliment of all time, you know, like, so if you're listening, text all your podcasts, tell them that they're doing good if you're enjoying it. Yeah. And the good thing, I think, like yours is kind of the same too, right? You can have it's centered around one thing, but you can have so many people around that tie in.
Yeah.
You know, like with me, like it's about anything. I mean, I'm a Welsh guy that hosts a podcast about Oklahoma. If you've driven through this state or even looked at this state ever once or flew over it, you'd probably be on the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just finding the stories that are unique. And this weekend, I'm going up to interview the guy who owns the Mayo Hotel. And I heard a story.
Gosh, that's wild.
And I heard a story. The guy who referred me, his name's Corey, and Corey said that ask him about like his family buying the Mayo for $1. So I just got, but you get these little things, right? These little, like, there's a story behind it that most people don't know, right? And like people see the hotel, it's beautiful, it's in the middle of Tulsa, all this cool stuff, right? But they have no
famous.
Yeah. So now there's little
I've never heard the $1 story though.
Yeah. So I'm excited to know that, and the podcast for me, it always happens like guests that I've never met before. It happens through referral. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like we mentioned Shannon a few times on the podcast. I had lunch with Shannon recently, and she's like, "Who do you want on the podcast?" I'm like, I don't know. I guess
the lady to ask.
BC Clark would be great. Like, wouldn't it be awesome to hear that?
Only if they let you use the Christmas jingle.
That's exactly what my wife said. I said, how awesome would it be to have the Christmas jingle, intro the podcast? She's like, oh yeah, we'll figure that out. So we've got that coming up soon as
Shannon,
well.
I'm going to call you.
Yeah, definitely. And also, one of the tricks I do is I mine other people's guests. Like you scroll people's guests. Like, oh, I need to have this person on. And this because you know that they're down to do a podcast.
I check Hetty's podcast a lot and yours, and I'm like,
So good. So for everyone listening, where can they go to find you? Social media, website, all that stuff, and then hire you for great service?
You can find my website. It's strategic-hype.com. Mm-hmm. You can follow me on Instagram at strategic-hype. You can email me, Andrea, at strategic-hype.com.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook. I'm all the places. LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, email me and we'll get you on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And put it to work.
Yeah, for sure.
One last thing. Did you get that tattoo when you started the business? Or was that before?
Good question. I got
Andrew has a tattoo of a lightning bolt.
I don't know if you can see it on the camera. It actually, I wanted a tattoo. I turned 40 this year, and so I did big vacation, partied all of June. And I was like, I'm going to get a tattoo this year. And I wanted the lightning bolt, and I was going to get something really small. It's like 2 inches. But I went to the place, and I was like, I just want a lightning bolt, whatever. And he actually looked at my website and pulled it from my logo. Yes. I didn't want the whole logo, but my logo is like a
TV box, right, with the lightning bolt.
It's like a conversation bubble with a lightning bolt straight through the middle.
So good.
And he pulled it straight from the website, and I got the tattoo, and I was like, I love this.
It's
and
like the same size as it is on the website, too.
It is. And what's funny is, like, I went on vacation to, I got on my right hand because I'm right-handed, and I was like, I want to see it when I write, be inspired,
Yeah.
And I got the tattoo, and then I went on vacation to Universal Studios because I wanted to go to Harry Potter. It's like a bucket list item.
Yeah.
And I was like, kind of self-conscious. I was like, people are going to think this is a Harry Potter tattoo. I was like, I don't know if I want to show it off. But I was like, well, here we are.
I mean, we're
the
going
best
all
place
in.
To be a super fan is at Hogsmeade.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's so good.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, my wife has a similar experience with wanting a little tattoo and it being a lot bigger than it is.
I think all of my tattoos have been that way, but they're, again, addictive. People are going to think that I'm addicted to everything I do, but...
Yeah. You've got to be, though. You've got to be passionate about what you do.
I'm all in. That's me.
Awesome.
All in.
Well, thanks for coming down, sharing some stories. Excited to see you grow as a business, and just after just over a year of doing business, and it's cool that you haven't gone back to doing your 9-to-5, and I'm just like, I'm doing this. I'm going all in.
Desire.
I have clients. Now you get a taste of that freedom, never going back to working full-time job. So appreciate you coming down. For everyone listening, I'll post the link to the website and all the social media stuff. And we will catch you next episode.
Thanks, Mike.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling an Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Also, huge shout out to RCB Bank for jumping on board to be a sponsor. RCB Bank's loan promotion is here for a limited time. Head into any of their 40 Oklahoma locations to get as low as 1.79 APR on your next car, boat, camper, or ATV. Apply online at rcbbank.com. RCB Bank, that's my bank. Rate and finance with approved credit. Restrictions apply. And member FDIC. Huge shout out to my sponsors. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.